Welcome you all. Thank you for coming to our event called In Her Element. We have a few guests here who are in the field of STEM. And so I am Kenneth Garcia. I will be moderating this event. I am from the Office of Culture Engagement. I'm the Culture Impact Manager. And so without me taking over, I'm going to go ahead and let them go ahead and introduce themselves. Tell us a little bit about, tell us your name, give us your title, and then tell us a little bit about your educational background. Okay, we'll start with Michelle Wood.
So, as you said, my name is Michelle Wood. I am currently out at Johnson Space Center in Webster. I work in flight operations. So I am more of an operations more than a design or engineer. The division I work in is responsible for all of the maintenance that happens on station. Also, one of the big things we get to do is we get to do a lot of astronaut training, which is probably my favorite part of the job. There is a lot of day-to-day boring stuff, but I also have days where I get to walk into buildings and go, "This is my job." How I ended up there was definitely not a direct route. I actually know Kenneth from when I worked for Lone Star College back starting in 2005. So I was here from 2005 to 2014. I worked for the district as a sign language interpreter. That was my first career. I grew up in it. That happened kind of organically. But so during that, I got my degree in math. Math was always just something I was kind of good at and I liked, and so I was like, hey, let's do that. So during math, I had to take physics from my degree, and I was like, actually, that's kind of cool too. And my dad is an engineer, and so talking to him about how I was really enjoying math and enjoying these classes, he was like, you know what you can make even more money at? Being an engineer. And I was like, well, I don't know. I've been in school a really long time. I'm kind of tired. But so I got to looking at it and went and visited U of H, which is where I got my degree, and talked to the department, saw the campus, and kind of saw what it would be like. And I was very fortunate also that I was able to stop working and go to school full time because I knew it was going to be a lot. Engineering is a big degree and it's a lot of work, and so I didn't have to keep balancing that job in school as I had been doing. So after I graduated, I did some other stuff. I worked at a pipe manufacturing company and some other things, and ended up learning about this job because of a friend I had from college who I was in the Society of Women Engineers with. We had run into each other at a conference. I was telling her about how much I hated my job. About a week later, she sent me an email, was like, hey, you should apply for this one. I work, because she works at NASA as well, and was like, this is a really cool department. I went, okay, sure. So I applied, and after the first interview, I was like, this is really fun, this is really cool, this would be a really cool place to work. And then after about my first year of working there, my catchphrase now is, this is the best job I never knew I wanted. Now I couldn't imagine doing anything else than anywhere else, and I plan on, dying at NASA kind of thing. And so, because there's just so much cool stuff that we get to do. But it was definitely, it was a hard road, and it's a lot of work. I'm not, going to sugarcoat that. But so now I'm here, and now I get to interact with very cool, very smart people. I get to be a part of lots of cool projects, very high publicity projects. People see news about it, and we get to be involved with a lot of that behind the scenes, which is fun. So that's where I'm at now, and that's what I do. And I've been there 6.5 years now, and so just really, really looking forward to keep doing it.
Thank you.
My name is, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, my name is Demetra Hammonds. I am titled a detective. I'm with the Houston Police Department Homicide Division. I work in a unit called Special Investigations, where we investigate police officer shootings, officer-involved suicides, unfortunately, and officer-involved criminal investigations where the officer commits the crime. I started my path, I want to say, as a very, very young lady watching crime shows. Your standard, right? You think of a homicide detective, it's true about us. Very young, I was addicted to those things. So I did what any natural crime show enthusiast would do. I would have been a death investigator. Not until I seen a body. I was like, no, this is not right. I'm going to do something different. Well, I did. I went to college. I went to Texas Southern University. I was originally a geology major, and I thought, okay, I can't do the body, but I'll do like the skeletal remains, you know? And it'll still give me that crime show thing. Yeah, no. There, I decided to do what any young person would do that wanted to be a quote-unquote cop. I'll go work in a prison. A lot of bad decisions, guys, a lot of bad decisions. Did that for 5 years while still going to school, so I'm still navigating school at the same time. I'm trying to figure out how, at the end of the day, I'm gonna be that homicide detective, but how, right? How am I gonna get this fear of this dead body out of me? I don't wanna be that person. Stayed there 5 years, became a beat cop, a Houston PD beat cop. I did that for 11 years. 11 years, and I was able to graduate with both my bachelor's and master's in criminal justice. That was really a blessing because learning what I learned during victimology and psychology, I understood in those time frames that, hey, you know what? I need to understand the psyche behind the criminal mind. And now I can sympathize with the victim. Now it's not personal anymore. Now I'm not afraid. Now I want to get justice for these people that are being murdered. And I had the credentials behind me at that point to be competitive, to compete for a position in the homicide division as a young female and one of color. And it almost became a dream job that was easy because that path led me exactly where I was intended to be all along. So that's my story.
Wow, I don't know where to start. These stories are very wow. So my name is Rosie Ortiz. Buenas tardes a todos. I am the first in my family to go to college. Actually, I have my mom here with me, so hi mom, I'm on TV. Yeah, so I mean, for my path, I am an industrial engineering student, and at one point I also wanted to do crime scene investigation. I also like usually watching the CSIs, and I also wanted to be an astronaut. So somehow maybe we would cross paths eventually, but I took the route of industrial engineering. But before I came to U of H, though, I wanted to be a computer engineer. I thank the Lord, baby Jesus Christ, that I didn't do that because I hate programming, I hate coding. But it was during that time when I was an undeclared engineer when I met Kenneth. So he knows me since I was, you can call me a fetus, I guess, when I was still young, very young. And he was a part of the Promise program, which is I believe you were also part of the Promise program. They taught us how to go more into like STEM majors, engineering, how to study better for those type of hard courses. So met a bunch of great individuals here, which is where I got Kenneth, and also it led me to the path where I am today. Because if it wasn't for that specific program and also through SHEP, another organization I formed greatly part of, I would not be where I am today. So they encouraged me to do more public speaking. I hated public speaking. People don't believe me when I tell them I used to get very red, and they just look at me like, no, you talk a lot, and a lot, big audiences. I'm like, that was me right now. Back in the days, just talking to a specific guy, and not because they were cute or anything, it was just because I didn't like talking in audiences like this. It was very hard for me. But Promise pushed me to go there, and eventually I led into industrial engineering because I like working with people. I get energized from people. Just being here in this room itself, seeing a lot of females as a whole, I mean, it empowers me to continue doing what I'm doing. So I'm like, I have to be around people. I have to be either a supervisor or manager, somehow manage a group of people so I can help them become better later on. And I like machinery, I like sciences and math, so I'm like, you know what? Let me do industrial engineering. So I went to it, and then in my junior year, I had the opportunity to do an internship with Cameron, which is now known as SOB or Cameron. Some major companies changed throughout the past few years, but then I wanted to pursue that because my dad worked at Cameron. He was a welder fitter, and he would take me sometimes on weekends, like, hey, Mihan, come and see what we're doing over there. We would be outside with my mom and I, and when I was little, and we would just be eating. He's like, look, this is what I'm doing. This is a mud pump. This is this and this and this. I'm like, this is pretty cool. So when I went to U of H, there was this room called the Cameron room, and I'm like, I want to work with Cameron. I think that's where I'm led to go. So the reps will come onto campus, and I will start being the toxic little student, like, hey, I want a job, I want a job. Eventually, it led me to, after the third try, because I did get rejected before I got my internship, after the third try, Cameron offered me an interview, and later laid me on to a full-time once I graduated from U of H with my engineering degree. and I'm under business administration. And then started off my full-time with Cameron. Did my 2 years orientational program called GRDP. Went to Louisiana to work in Burr, Louisiana, the middle of nowhere, but I was exposed to quality engineer and manufacturing engineer. Came back here to Houston and Brookshire. So if you go on I-10, past the Buc-ee's to your left, you'll see a big Cameron facility. I used to be there. I did my supervisory role there as well as materials role. And funny how you said that you had the job that you didn't think you were gonna have. Same thing happened to me. I wanted to be something supervisor. So when I graduated 2-year program, I'm like, I want to be supervisor. And they had fortunately something at that facility, and I ended up being the warehouse supervisor for about 2.5 years. And then went on to be a production supervisor. But then after that, I kind of got tired of that very fast-paced supervisor role, because sometimes I would be there at 4 a.m., stay till 6 p.m., 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. So I wasn't having a life. I was losing weight. I was losing hair. Like, this is not for me. I love what I'm doing, but I think it's a change for me. So I didn't really like materials until later I realized that I actually love it. Because materials, I thought it was going to be something boring. I'm like, who needs supply chain? Who needs the logistics? And now I'm a warehouse inventory logistics manager. What are the odds, right? So sometimes always take those opportunities that you think you might not end up doing, you may not liking them as a whole. So I went to a value stream manager position where I am right now at the Stafford facility in production systems, so more of the valves and measurements. And did 3 months of it because I was like, this is not me. I am more into something more hands-on. I want to put on my closed-toe shoes, my coveralls. I want to get dirty. The other role didn't allow me to do that. It was more getting on calls, doing virtual meetings. I'm like, this is not me. So then now I'm currently in my current role with inventory logistics manager, so which is what I love doing it. And at the side, I also do campus manager recruiting for University of Houston. So I go recruit the University of Houston to get talent for SOB now, to get all those types of things. And outside of work, I also am part of SHEP, Houston Professional Chapter. So while U of H, I form a part of it as a student, as a member. But when I graduated, I'm like, I want to give back to both Promise and SHEP that both helped shape who I am today, giving scholarships to other Latinas in STEM. So now I'm very actively involved with SHEP Houston as their Vice President Internal, doing my last 2 years, because then I've been on the board for 4 years, so I kind of need like a little break, and then I can come back. But that's kind of been my path, been with SOB now for 7.5 years. And now here I am to be able to see what kind of questions you guys may have.
Thank you, thank you. So what I hear from all three of you is that you started in one direction, and then you kind of like circled back into maybe more than one direction. What did you learn about the transition that helped you decide in the direction that was meant for you?
I don't know that I have a good answer for that, because my transition happened a little bit out of desperation. I was taking the shotgun approach to finding a new job, which means that I found a barn size and I shot my shotgun at it, which means everything hit. Doesn't matter. I was not as picky probably as you want to be. But because of that, being willing and open to just blanket applications places to find that thing that I didn't know, because I didn't know what I wanted. I thought I wanted to do oil and gas. My dad strongly encouraged me out of that because that's what he did for his whole life. I knew I didn't want to do electrical engineering because I took like one circuits class and I was like, this is magic, I don't know what's happening. And so, I ended up doing mechanical, so I would have a broad option. And so I think leaving yourself open to, yes, this is my plan, or this is what I think I want to do, but being willing to do those other things. Because you never know what it's going to lead to. Because to be honest, the reason that I work at NASA is not because my engineering degree is fancy and I had a great GPA and all these internships and all this other stuff. It was the other stuff I did. It was the fact that I worked at Lone Star. I also taught here for a couple of semesters. I did, like she said, I did public speaking. I spoke at conferences. I was involved in professional development organizations, and it was all that other stuff that I had besides my engineering degree that opened that door for me. And so don't think that if you know, it's never too late. I didn't graduate till I was 37 with my engineering degree, so don't think you have to do what you're doing now forever. So just being willing to say yes and try the thing, because like Rosie said, I'll try it. I think that sounds great, and then go, ooh, no. But being willing, like, okay, now I know these things that I wouldn't know before, and who knows later I may be like, oh, I remember when I worked over there and I learned this thing, and can help out. There's lots of stories of people saving the day because they went to this one meeting or took this one class once upon a time that they remember something for.
So for me, I think it's going to be a little more traditional for me because I wanted to be that girl, that homicide girl. I knew I had to get there. The steps that I took, I come from an older era. I probably should have said that earlier. So I've been in my field 25 years. I hope I still actually look kind of young, but I've been in my field now 25 years. So I didn't have the access to technology like we do today. So having to take the leap of faith to hope somehow I was going to get there, I learned through academics. So my schooling got me in that position to gain the knowledge of why people that were pioneers before me got there. Because without those people, I'm not sure if the doors would have been open for women like myself. And we're still few far in between. It's not a job that it's out there. You don't hear about it in social media, for example, even now, because it's not a glorified job, right? No one's going to glorify you for going out to seek justice. And I think that's what we miss when we talk about even STEM, where no one thinks about forensic as being a science to figure something out, to go to the legal side of it. And I didn't know that when I was just a beat cop. It wasn't until I was actually in school that I understood how big the criminal justice system is and how full circle it became that when we all play our part in that system, we are seeking justice for those people that need it. So for me, that route was definitely traditional for education because I came out of an era that didn't have Google. Now I Google everything, you know? So when I want to know something about a crime, I just Google it. It's like, oh, it's right there for me. And so thank you.
For me, it will be summarized in three key points. So it will be support, networking, and getting out of your comfort zone. If those three things wouldn't have been part of my life, I really wouldn't say I am where I am today. So support can be from anyone, whether it's a significant other, a parent, a teacher, someone that's there whenever you have those low points in your life. You're like, ya no puedo, ya me quiero dar por vencido. Like you have that someone that's like, hey, you went through all this 5, 6, 18 years of just middle school, high school, elementary. That's already in itself an accomplishment there. And then going to a community college. I too went to a community college as well. I am an alumni from Early College, so East Early College High School. So I did some of my HCC. I did San Jack too. I did San Jack at some point with it. And I transferred some of those credits, but until you're at that point, you really don't see the benefit that you have at your hands when you're doing these type of classes, because you don't have to be there. Maybe you can take several years, which is understandable. All of us have responsibilities for families and whatnot. But just taking whatever time it is and you're doing that time to transfer it, that's already a long way than what other students are going through. So at least for getting an associate's and transferring those credits, I was able to go straight to my engineering courses when I went to University of Houston. I still took my 4 years of needed because it is not easy, but at least you're already in that path. So whenever you're in those low points, you have that one person telling you, hey, tú puedes, it's okay, breathe. Take a small break and then come back, and then you think with a fresh mind, you're like, you're right, let me continue that path. So having that one significant person that's gonna be telling you like, hey, tú puedes, échale ganas, that's very crucial. Number 2, networking. I mean, I didn't know I was gonna see her here. So it's such a small world sometimes with the people that you cross paths with. You're gonna be, maybe it's gonna be your next boss. Like a lot of the people that I met during my cohort when I first joined SOB, I work with my best friend right now. We had our interdisciplinary courses together, and now we call ourselves work besties. And we went through the whole rotational program. She was in Ville Platte, I was in Berwick. We came back to Houston, she was at Brentmore, I was at Brookshire. So somehow you still see each other eventually. Even though it's such a big company, we eventually see each other, and they are the ones that are going to help you later on whenever you're stuck with something, whether it's a specific assignment that you don't know what to do, you can go to see them. Or you're looking for a specific job, you never know. The job is always constantly ongoing, especially oil and gas. Some days are perfect, some days are going to be low. If you need a job, call on your networking that you met at either universities, colleges, wherever you met that person, you may eventually see them again. So having a good networking of people, whether here at school, our job, anywhere else, because you don't know if they're going to be your next boss or your next coworker. And then 3, getting out of your comfort zone. At U of H, that was mainly the one that pushed me to do a lot of the public speaking. My mom can tell you, and she can testify, she used to tell me, Mija, speak up, tell them your name. Why are you hiding behind my faldas like you were trying to get my protection? I'm like, I won't be here one day. And she's right. It kind of clicked to me until I was in college, because I saw these people getting internships and interviews in their freshman year. I'm like, what the hell? I'm Hispanic, I'm Latina, I have an engineering degree going to pursue it. Why can't I get the same thing that she gets? Why is Michelle getting interviews when I can't? We're still the same type of brain, we're still the same type of mentality. What's preventing me from doing that? Well, she knows how to speak better. She knows how to get out there, get her name out there. So I'm like, chinelas, I have to put on the pilas. So then I will start getting involved with Promise. And they would help us how to talk with a recruiter. What key things the recruiters look at whenever you go and talk to them? Like, what are the main things, personality-wise? How to move your hands, how to do a handshake, your pitches, how to dress professionally, how to get your resume critique, how to do your mock interviews. All of those things were very crucial because I had no idea, being a first gen, I don't have that person to go up to. I'm like, my mom can help me only be my supportive one. But she also didn't have as much education. So I admire her for everything she's been supporting me this whole years, but I really didn't have someone that I could go to because there was no one else in my family that I could go to for that. But through Promise, through SHEP, through other organizations, I never joined SWE, I'm sorry. I should have joined SWE. Society for Women Engineers. I'm not a feminist or anything, but I just didn't join because I was involved in so many other things. But those organizations are very crucial because they help shape you who you are and get those skills and push you out of your comfort zone. Eventually, I learned all this stuff that they told me, how to talk with recruiters, how to get my resume, how to do interviews, and eventually I got my first internship. So it took some time for that, and even at work right now, I push myself a lot because I don't know everything in everywhere that I go. Because I have a manager role, they're like, you know everything. I'm like, you know I don't know everything. I know some things, but if I don't, I know who to go to within my network to help you wherever you need to. So those 3 things will be my main things, will be networking, have a support, and get out of your comfort zone.
Okay, so next question. What are some of the challenges you faced navigating the educational system, and how did you overcome them?
Just again, to speak my truth, I didn't really. Both my parents have college degrees. Both my parents, I knew I was going to go to college. Like I said, I got to stop working and go to college full time. They're in my late 30s. While my parents helped me because my dad's dad did that for him, so he was paying forward. And so the only challenges were the ones that were inherent in the engineering program. And so I don't really have a good story, to say, but just to, I admire all the people.
What about like the way that you had already got your degree and already had a career and then going into a new field that was not even related to your previous degree? Like what kind of challenges?
Technically my previous degree was math, and so it was not, but yes, changing from careers, stopping in the liberal arts to go into science was a little, there's some struggle there just because it was a new brain, but I had always kind of been science-minded. I had just been resistant to it as a younger person. So I can testify to how helpful it can be to have that support system, because I had my parents and my husband were just like, go do what you need to do, and we'll be here when you get done. I was able to not have to worry as much about kind of all that outside stuff. So, that's my
Okay, my story may be a little long and different. So like I mentioned before, 25 years in, and I'm pretty sure maybe a few people in this room could think 25 years ago, we had dial-up. And if you don't know what dial-up is, just go Google it.
on your non-dial-up.
On your non-dial-up. So I did not have access to know how to navigate through school. I am also a first generation college grad. I should say I'm actually a first generation high school graduate in my family. So if you could imagine, they had no advice for me. I'm also the first police officer in my family. That's an African American. You can't even imagine those conversations 25 years ago. They were like, what are you thinking, right? So navigating school, and I have no support because they don't know to support me. They don't know how to support me. Fear, because we are African American at that time, of what the system could do to me. And it didn't register with me that I would be in any trouble, but considering the era that they came from, I understood. But I wouldn't have understood that if I didn't go into college to receive that knowledge through the classes that I was taking. So I was fortunate enough, I think, to have the personality and the drive to say, I gotta be that FBI profiler lady on TV. Like, that was my driving motivation. I know that may sound redundant, but it truly was. But the hardships and the avenues that I had to take were not so traditional. College seemed like it took forever, because one degree to the next, meeting professors telling me, girl, you're doing it wrong. You need to go down this road. You need to take these forensic classes. You need to take these victimology classes. You need to take these crime classes. It was, I don't know, I can't even tell you how difficult that was, but I did get through it. And I think I credit a lot of it for those professors that believed in me and said, you could be that statistic, you could be that girl, you could be that criminal profiler, absolutely. And that's how I got through it.
I'm Hispanic, so even as Hispanics as a general, I truly understand what it is. Like, you're Latina, you're gonna be an engineer. Why? Why not stay at home and be the wife for that husband, and when they come home, like, you can have the dinner for them, or take care of the children. That's a lot, even in our religion a lot. It's also like, why have the woman work when they can just stay at home, take care of the children, and that's it? That was not me. Fortunately enough, I have an example at home where my parents are both very supportive, and they've always been the tomboyish person. And when I was little, I was in karate, so I wasn't like the normal cheerleader, like, hey, you wear pink. No, I was more of the opposite. I was just very like, I don't want to do ballet, I want to do karate, I want to kick people. So I wanted to do something different. And even when I went to middle school, I continued my path in martial arts instead of doing volleyball or soccer. I don't know why I like the martial arts. I used to watch movies with my dad when I was little, with like Bruce Lee and Jet Li. So eventually he pushed me like, yeah, mija, go, dale, my hand. I'm like, oh yeah, let me do that. So I joined karate, and then I almost ended up with my black belt, but I stopped at red belt. But what I'm trying to say is that you have that support, like Michelle. It's gonna sound very redundant in all what we say, but it's true, because if it weren't for them, and I would listen to what other people stereotypically thought of Hispanics, I would not be where I am. I always said that. I even had one of my aunts, and she told me when I post pictures of myself with my hard hat, she's like, why is Rosie in construction? I'm like, I am not in construction. Like, I've explained to you many, many times, but I'm like, in summary, I'm an engineer, I'm not in construction. But you always have that other perspective outside. They don't know what you have to go through to get to that path. But fortunately enough, my parents have always been very supportive on that aspect, and I continued that path. I would push myself. And also, I was the first in high school as well. First in my family to be an engineer. So I had that kind of motivation of my own. I had to push myself. Because yes, I had to make my parents proud, but I'm not doing it also for their dream. It's because I have to have a future later on to be able to buy my own high heels, buy my own type of shoes, buy my own interests, go to Disney World. I love Mickey Mouse. So who's going to be able to help me in the path whenever my parents are not here? Because I'm an only child. I don't have any siblings. So when my mom is gone, my dad is gone, what am I gonna do? I have to be able to be independent. I have to have that resilience during those hard times where I'm at my low point, or have a supportive partner. So a lot of it had to be with my parents' support and having the other people that sometimes would come and talk to us. Like these type of things, they would have at UH sometimes when other students are graduated. And they will come and inspire a woman like, hey, you're Latina. In SHEP, specifically in SHEP, they always had other people that went through the same type of stereotypical things that I have been through. But they're the ones like, hey, you're gonna go through these things, even at work, you're not gonna stop doing that. And you're gonna hear people that maybe, why are you doing this? Why are you not at work? Why are you not at home taking care of the family? I'm like, no, because that's not who I was honed to be since I was little. I was told, you can do whatever you have your mind into. Continue, don't give up. Do it with a high head. So I always had those words coming in. I had it through my college career too, that there were some days that were not easy. It's not as easy as you think. But you think of those things like, okay, I'm the first in my family, I got this, I can do it. More motivation, can it, I got telling me, you can do it, Rosie, you can do it. So you have all those people behind you that are supporting you, that you're not alone. And other people within your engineering class are also going through the same thing. And I met a lot of engineers, as well as Hispanics, that we all got together and we also motivated each other that you can do it. There's gonna be hard times in life, but you can still do that.
So, it's very thematic, Rosie, that you were talking about being a woman, you know, and trying to overcome some of those things. So, what's some of the challenges as a woman that you face in your industry, and like how do you work through them for all three?
Okay. So being always in a leadership position, fortunately enough, up to this point, I have not faced too bad at work. So when I was a supervisor, I would oversee about 35 people, 2 of them only being the only females. So I was the only little Latina, 20 years old out of college, managing a whole team of people that were like 30 plus years of experience. What the heck did I get myself into? I would ask myself sometimes, but a lot of it has to do with what mindset you go into those atmospheres. So I knew a lot of them, I saw older men, I'm like, that's my dad right there, that's my dad right there. They all have a family they have to go home to. So my best plan of action was always, I'm not gonna be the one engineer that's gonna be like, I know what I'm doing, you have to do this, demand. No. My plan of action was to go and meet everyone individually, get to know the family, get to know them on a first name basis, and be like, hey, I am here for you, and I will speak Spanish. You will not know how fortunate you are when you're bilingual, because just speaking Spanish, they heard me say, hey, ¿cómo estás, qué onda? They already flipped them into another type of level because, oh, she understands me. And I will hear so much gossip from the floor about the managers, but you get so close with them because you have the relationship with individuals. So even though it was a big crowd, 30 plus years of experience, I would feel intimidated, not gonna lie, but I would try and hide that and just show my bubbly self and get to know everyone individually. And eventually, I won them over because they even trusted me, and I will be their main person that will be telling managers what they told me, and I told them, and then I told the managers what they told me, so it was that interaction between everyone. So as a supervisor, I was able to win that in that case, and using my Spanish to my advantage was always very crucial. So if you do know Spanish, or you know another language, whatever it is, it comes to your benefit when you're at work. So that was always very helpful. And also, when I did leave my supervisory role, because I was always very close with them, and also for the second shift, that was like another 30 people that I would have to deal with on a daily basis. When I left, they all got money together to buy me a basket of Bath and Body Works. That was out of them, out of their own money. It wasn't even the managers that had planned it. So you could see how of an impact you will make in these individuals sometimes just by working with them, because you're a family. You spend like, 16 hours or 12 hours at work and then only a few hours at home. So you have to get the relationship with them. Now as a manager, I haven't had that either, because I always use those type of skills, like I will try and meet the people instead of demand the people. So that's very important, and you have to tell them that you're smart. And something I have seen with an SOB at least, that they don't judge you based on your ethnicity. They don't judge you based on your gender, because that's first of all against HR policy. So if something like that happens, you're out of there. So with an SOB at least, they always respected my ideal, respected my opinions. they're always welcoming new type of things that you bring on board. So at least in the company that I've been since I started in 2016 on to this point, I've been fortunate enough to not face any of those bias things, and they see that what type of skills you bring to the team, that if it's something that's going to be making the whole process better, they're going to be welcoming you with open arms instead of criticizing you on the step by step. But fortunately, up to this point, I've been able to use my skills by being bilingual, being able to how to emotionally read people, because that's very important. I don't know if there's any courses that are offered, but if there is, psychology is going to be a good one to take as well. Because if you know how to read people, you tell them something, you see their face go like this, you're like, okay, let me change maybe my tone. Or in the Spanish speaking, in the Spanish language, there's so many phrases that could be done. Like, for example, I told one individual one time, me voy a jalar, which in Mexican is like, I'm going to go to work. But in another heritage, they thought I was going to go smoke marijuana. And I was like, no. It's not marijuana that I'm going to go do. But you have to be very emotionally intelligent, because sometimes you don't know they may interpret it differently. So those were my two experiences. But as of now, to this point, fortunately enough, with an SOB, I haven't had that pushback on it.
So for challenges for me, let me acknowledge first all the pioneers that came before me. We have something in the police department that's called general orders, and this is policy God and W. Let me say that. But there are challenges because we are competitive. If any of you guys know police officers, it's probably one of the most competitive fields. And what we say is we're all blue. No one's a woman, no one's a man, no one has an ethnicity. You're blue. So that means paper that defines you. Your resume defines you. Building that resume and having to deal with such high levels of competition. Sitting on board panels. I was like super nervous, guys, when I came here to speak with you guys because of the level of competition at our jobs, and I was explaining to them, if I was going to sit on this panel, I would have been drilled for about 45 minutes to make sure everything that I was saying before it hit that media circuit was scripted. So they don't play around. And I'm sure you guys have seen us on the news. We don't play. It's paramilitary and it is extreme. So I would say now in my generation those are the new challenges, right? The competitiveness, the openness to the public, right? We're having to be transparent. It's the word you hear all the time. So when we wasn't transparent before, it wasn't that we were confidential, but it was some things that didn't need to be shared with the media because it may affect the investigation. It may affect how the police department works. Well, we don't live in an era like that anymore. So those are new challenges that we're facing. We're not so much facing those challenges that our pioneers faced. You know, being African American, being Hispanic, being white, being male, being a female, that stuff is behind us. We're just blue, and we're serving the public now. So I see that as one of our major challenges across the board, not just for me, but across our industry. That's where our challenges are.
So I don't really feel it at NASA as much. And again, the gender part is not the issue. Sometimes the age can be an issue because we still have a big contingent of the shuttle guys that are still working there, and that's old guard kind of stuff. I did experience it before I came to NASA. Like I said, I worked at a company that manufactured pipe supports, and it was a manufacturing company. So there was a manufacturing floor, and so I was in charge of course, getting orders and making sure they were created and packaged and sent and sold and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of times I would have to go out to the floor and, in the welders and the fitters and, all those kind of guys, there was, one or two women here and there. And so that one, you definitely felt it if you ever went out there and they would look at you, or you'd go ask them something or give them a correction or, any of those kind of conversations. What I am fortunate is to not be a small woman. You may not be able to tell now, but I am 6'2" barefoot. So I use that to my advantage, and they, are not, it's not easy for them to physically talk down to me, and so it made it hard for them to talk down to me. And so I used that to my advantage, and I used my, you know, philosophy of forgiveness instead of permission a lot of times with people like that, and would just help myself to, you know, walking into their stalls or going to start, you know, prepping orders or all this kind of stuff that I was probably, you know, I was not supposed to touch, you know, whatever, because I'm a woman, and just show that I could do it, and, you know, just kind of do it, and then, you know, show them that you can, because there are still a lot to this day, and, you know, 2020s that men, you know, some men still just don't think women should be getting dirty in a warehouse, should be holding these machineries, all this kind of stuff. And so until you show them that you can, and then they're like, well, now what, you know, now what can I say? I've proven myself. And so sometimes you just gotta go sit at the table. There were meetings, you know, that, you know, production meetings and stuff like that, where I would just have to make sure I got there early and sit my butt at the table. I was probably not supposed to be there, and they probably didn't want me there, but they're to all their problems, they're also, you know, a little bit polite, you know, and they weren't gonna look at me and be like, get out of the chair. And so you sometimes just gotta make your own way, and then not be apologetic for, you know, doing that, and being who you know you can be. You know, if you can do it, show them you can do it. And if you get in trouble, say, you know, my bad, and I won't do it again. But you never know if you just sit around waiting for somebody to ask you to come do it or come participate, you will probably never join in. So go forth and do big things.
So we're gonna do 2 more questions, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So in these next 2 questions, we're gonna make them a little bit brief, especially you, Rosie. But what can you share with us, a memorable experience or accomplishment in your educational career?
I actually had many memorable experiences. Some of them were at the college, but most of them were just being a part of, like Rosie said, our promise groups and our professional organizations. Because those were the ones that, you know, being a part of the university chapter connected you to the professional chapter, which would usually connect you to the national chapter. And so there was lots of opportunities out there for students to do things. And so, again, my philosophy is say yes to all the things. I was a member of all the organizations. I volunteered for all the positions, and I got to travel I went to Montreal twice. I got to go to Phoenix. I got to go to South Korea. I got to go, you know, to Tennessee and Nashville and, you know, and Philadelphia, and just all of these places for, you know, volunteer positions, for conferences, for, you know, all of these things. You know, again, all supported and all paid for, and, you know, again, networking. I've met, you know, presidents of companies and, you know, CEOs and all these high up people because they have these student volunteer positions, and so I wouldn't get to do that if I didn't say yes and I didn't join. And so, like Rosie said, your network is important. It's important to go out there and get your network because, again, network is how I got my job. I know lots of people, I've heard stories of women that never interviewed for a job their entire life because every new job they got was because one of their friends called them up and was like, hey, there's this position that I think, you know, you would be good for. And so it really is about who you know more than what you know sometimes.
Okay, hopefully mine make you guys laugh. You gotta get Google back out for me, guys. So, short and sweet, I had the geology major. We had to go use card catalogs. That's why I said get Google out if you guys don't know what that is. I had huge books that I had to read. And then, of course, I decided to switch over to criminology and do psychology. Oh, my God. Mistake. That's a science for me. But I made the dean's list. That's it. That was my academic accomplishment. Switching over, reading those books, reading about the brain, reading about behavior, and my name is posted up in the university. And I was like, oh my God. No Google though, it was just on a big poster. So that's my academic achievement.
I will take one. Okay, for me, I've had several, actually. At high school, as I said earlier, I was an early college alumni. So I graduated with salutatorian, so number 2 in my class, about 96. And you would think that, oh, they're gonna do a lot of like emphasis on the valedictorian. No. They came to me because I was in a Hispanic school, being a minority. I had Channel 45 come and interview me that day. I had no idea why until I came on a commercial and it's el momento, it's the moment in Channel 45. I'm like, oh look, I am on TV. And they actually interviewed my parents too, and I was given like this medal. So I didn't think much of it at the time because I was just focused in school. But then now I look back, I'm like, oh man, I came on TV and on YouTube, guys. You search "Es el momento, los you can see later." And then I graduated, went to University of Houston. Joined several organizations. For me, the best accomplishment is just graduating from the University of Houston with my IE degree because I was the first in my family. No one had that, and I fortunately enough had some of my aunts come from Mexico that day that I graduated. They came to and cheer me on. So it was great to see my family being supportive from there too. And then other ones. Joining other organizations that gave me scholarships because if it had not been for being an early college alumni, I would not have gotten a 2-year full ride to go to U of H. And I even told them, oh, I'm studying engineering. I may need 1 more year of money. And they were like, hey, if you don't ask, you never get hurt. So just because I asked, I'm gonna try and see if they give me money. And they did. They covered me for a 3rd year. There's usually just a 2-year max for going to an early college high school. And they're like, yeah, we'll cover you for another 4 year because I know engineering is hard. So they covered me for another year, and I was able to have no fees or anything when I graduated from the University of Houston. So everything got paid, and in my last year as a senior, I worked as a Promise TA, so they would also pay us to just work and help other students in other workshops. So I basically paid myself, in a way, all my 4 years of engineering school and ended up debt-free, thank God. But yeah, those were my 2 main ones, being salutatorian in my high school and just graduating with my degrees from University of Houston.
Okay, last question. In what ways do you think the STEM industry could better support and advance women in their career?
Innovation. I think that's the simple answer to that question, is innovation. When women come into the industry, especially my industry, you ladies are engineers, they run from it. They're afraid of it. They're afraid of the psychology. They're afraid of the forensics. They are, when you think of death investigators, for example, and I can go into detail about each individual field that's within the circle of criminal justice, but those ladies that work over in death investigation, that's going to be your medical examiners. That's going to be the ladies that are collecting physical bodies off the street. They're not supported because they're not heard. We don't know that they exist, right? But they are part of STEM because they're taking these science classes because that's what's required for their job. Because remember what I said earlier, when we're in blue, we're just blue. We're not men and women, so we're competing on that piece of paper. And if our schools are not backing these young ladies through STEM, then they don't know. You get another degree maybe in mathematics or engineering, and you go to become a forensic scientist or a death investigator. You're going back to school because you don't meet the standard. You can't compete against all the other resumes, which are flooded with men. I'm not sure how men are getting the information and we're not. But innovation, we have to figure out as ladies how to innovate each other to get us through those paths, especially for those that are watching crime shows like
that. My snarky answer is to not take away funding for DEI initiatives, but since that is a lot bigger, story than any one of us can take on. I think we've all said just making yourself available once you've done it or something, sharing that knowledge with anybody that'll listen, and even those that won't. That's what Facebook's great for. You can say all the things, and it doesn't matter if people are listening. I can still say it. And so just being willing to be out there and making your network and sharing your knowledge and encouraging being that support for somebody else, a stranger, any other women in your class, anything like that. They're gonna need the leg up.
I was gonna say the same thing, financial support. Yeah, D&I is one of them, but also financial support and just any type of STEM outreach that is out there, especially when we're gonna start with our kids younger, whether in the elementary level, middle school level, or high school level. That's when we can start impacting students, females, and everyone else in STEM at a younger age. So we have more resources and support in that end, then we'll be able to change a lot of these aspects that we have right now.
Thank you. Do we have questions from our audience?
I have a question regarding the police department.
Yes.
Because you investigate officers, how do they feel? Because you investigate other officers, how do they feel about your group doing that? I would think it would be, it would be tough.
It is definitely tough. So to break this down, I hope I can get you to understand. So there's two entities that investigate police officers within a division or within a department, because we also have the FBI that do civil rights violations, but I won't bore you again. So within the Houston Police Department, we have the Internal Affairs, which is administrative. And remember I mentioned those general orders that are got off or wrong? An officer somehow has to know all that stuff in their head and follow those rules. What I do is investigate the officer in regards to a criminal allegation. So that's a little different. When you are accused of a crime, this is when the legal system under the umbrella of a defense attorney comes into play. And so they can actually tell me, go kick rocks. And I'm not going to talk to you, detective, because I'm going to call my lawyer. Because they have the same exact rights as if they were just a defendant in any other crime. Now, there's a catch-22 for police officers. Anybody decide to be one, you do commit a crime, they actually up it on you. So the enhancement, committing a criminal offense as being a public official is enhanced. But no, they don't like me much to answer that question.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What were the shows that you enjoyed most in that?
You know what? You was watching me the whole time. So get your phones out and Google.
Yeah.
Because it was the X-Files.
Oh. Cool.
Anybody else? Yes.
I was just gonna ask, can I add you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Network right there. Networking.
Anybody else?
I guess I just want to attest because I know Rosie was looking at me because I was just talking to her as we were coming in, so I greeted her, and I told her that I was part of ACT-SWE, and I was also part of SHIP. So, and I got my first internship through SWE. That's why I got my internships as well for helping some networking, and that has helped me. So just wanted to get started up there, and she kept looking at me. SHIP, and then this, okay, but it does help in the working part a lot. Any questions?
So just to clarify some of the acronyms.
Okay.
SWE, Michelle mentioned it, Society of Women Engineers, SHIP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, PROMISE, Program for Mastery in Engineering Studies, which brings up an interesting point that Michelle talks about the DEI initiatives. It was once the Program for Minority Engineering Students, but because of a lawsuit, we had to change the name to Program for Mastery in Engineering Studies. Anybody else with questions? Yes, please.
I was wondering if you guys knew of any really good scholarships for women going into STEM. It's okay.
So I can tell you within my field, this is actually, if you wanted to go into this field, if you decided to take the route that I took, the department will pay for your entire education. It's a full ride, all the way up to your doctorate degree. All three. So to answer that question.
So besides, the Society of Women Engineers, there's a Texas Women's Commission. I think that's that's right. And other organizations like that that offer scholarships, college scholarships, but also the major professional organizations, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the IEEE, which for electrical engineers, chemical engineers. So, all of those major organizations also have scholarships. And honestly, she keeps talking about Google, but do that. Like, there's just money out there that if you don't know it's there and nobody applies for it, and you read the conditions and all of these things to qualify, and you're like, man, I don't have that. Do it anyway. Because, if nobody's applying for it and you apply for it, but you don't check all the boxes, they're like, man, well, we've been holding all this money for 5 years. Here you go. You never know. So, just the internet is a good resource, but if you know what engineering you want to do, also check the colleges too. Sometimes the college itself will have, like at University of Houston, we have some endowed scholarships that alumni have set up for women that are going to go into engineering. And so check the colleges and that kind of stuff as well. So really, they're out there. Just do your research and watch your deadlines, because sometimes the applications are very, very long. You have to write like an essay and some other kind of stuff. So just make sure you get it in on time. And you get a little calendar and keep your to-do list. But apply for all of them. I'm telling you, if it says the word women in engineering, whatever else the qualifications are, just apply, because you never know. If everybody thinks they can't get it, nobody's going to get it. So that one person that actually applies is going to get it. So it's there.
And for chef, we also have a professional chapter. We actually just recently had our gala at Space Center Houston, I think last Saturday, where we gave out 12 scholarships to just STEM students. You don't have to be engineering specifically, just anyone that's in STEM. Just by applying, you'll be able to come to our gala, which is scholarship gala, that we invite all of our recipients and a guest to come and get that scholarship there. So we have that too, and then also I'm the creator of one that's called H-Township Tina Scholarship. So basically anyone that's involved within chef, whether at a school chapter or in a community college and you're part of chef, we don't look at GPAs whatsoever. We look more as to what you're doing in involvement with that organization and what you're going to bring in. It has like one prompt that says, what types of obstacles have you faced as a woman in STEM? So like something that you'll find a lot of people, which is very important, connection, so as on LinkedIn. Because we always have those random scholarships as well too, and like sometimes it's by being a female or being your first in your family to go to these kind of scholarship. People don't apply because they're like, nah, all the people are applying to it, but in fact only like 1 or 2 have applied.
Yes?
So I noticed earlier Miss Rosie Ortiz was talking about like supply management and how at first you thought like, oh, it's gonna be boring. So why are women with like business degrees not viewed as like women in STEM? Because I notice a lot of people like differentiate the two, but there's a lot of STEM qualities in business.
Yes, and I agree, because even as an industrial engineer, they associate us more like a business major. You're like, oh, you're not the real engineer, you're the imaginary engineer. I'm like, who's the boss of you right now? So like, there's a bunch of it had to do with how we describe that to them. Because there was a recent study with an SOB that they asked 4 to 6 year olds, hey, can y'all draw a quick drawing of what do you see a policeman? So you drew a policeman, fireman, and an astronaut. And so the little kids just started drawing like whatever they thought. They're like, all right, so now we're gonna have them pass in. They were all females. All the 3 of them were females. But when they looked at the drawings of the 4 to 6 year olds, they drew men. So that's why I say it's very important to get that engraved in students since yay big. Because a lot of them are already biased that a lot of these degrees that should be STEM, business should be not STEM. Or not a female. So we start getting that word out, which is where all of us have to be advocates in it as to, yes, it's business, but you are able to do all of these things. Having people come and talk to these workshops kind of change that mentality of these people to also think of it like it's STEM. Supply chain as a whole is what really impacts everything from the whole internal incoming of material all the way to outdoor. So what you can say is like Walmart. Do you get your groceries at Walmart? Well, yes, okay. There's a whole chain of command that needs to go through there. If you didn't get all the sciences, all the physics, all the calculus, all of these derivatives of STEM, none of this would be happening. So business as a whole, it is STEM because it involves engineering, it involves the geological sciences, it involves physics. So as a whole, supply chain is a science in itself in that aspect. Because I have corrected many people, and now whenever they talk to me, they're like, yeah, you're right. So they know that business is actually a lot. And even within SOB, we do a lot of recruiting for business. That's one of our top majors that we do because they're very, what's the word when you're very in demand, yeah, in demand. So they're able to be placed in several aspects within the company. So yes, you have an engineering degree, but as a business major, you have a different mentality. So you have that different aspect. So whenever we have a whole meeting, you're able to bring up your 2 cents, which is something that we didn't even thought about in an engineering mindset. But yeah.
I guess to add on that, totally true. I do come from an engineering background. I've been passing the microphone, but I do come from an engineering background. And before it wasn't industrial, before it was also called manufacturing engineering. And then for manufacturing engineering, we had the same stigma, at least in my school, where if you're manufacturing, it's more leans towards the side of the woman, the girls that they used to do that. If you're in the mechanical engineering, you do that. So just wanted to say that I've seen that as well, that bringing that part into talking about that portion there. I know I'm jumping in, but any questions?
So we'll go ahead and close out, and I just want to make sure you understand that, Lisbeth is very responsible for putting this together, so let's give her a round of applause. The Hispanic Serving Institution STEM grant, led by Manera Kareem. Yeah. And the ladies who joined us today for our panel, much appreciate y'all being here and sharing those enlightenment and wisdom.
For giving us your time and coming here, driving Houston time was 1 hour away from Houston, everything. So please, for like the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for coming today. And we have some gifts for you.
It's going in my office.
So if you all can show it, this one is because this is the promotional items we use at the university. We want to honor you and thank you for coming, and I want you to have a great memory of our event. And hopefully, if we ask you again, you will come to us.